Good morning, everyone. We're going to give it another minute or two and let a few more people join. My phone says a minute to 10. Happy Friday. I think most of us have Monday off, and I hope that you have some relaxing activities planned and hopefully some good weather. I'm doing my broadcast here from Portland, Oregon, and we have been hit by some really big rains and had some flooding here. So hoping for a little bit of sun to maybe take advantage of some hiking on my day off on Monday, and hope that all of you can maybe get outside and get a little fresh air as well. Our session today, I have 10 o'clock, so I'm going to go ahead and get started with my intro. And I'll just wait for a few more people to join in. But good morning, my name is Chris Barker. Thanks for taking out some time joining us in our results learning session. So for today, our session is a half hour. Mass Ingenuity will be launching this, and we're aiming to do these about twice a month, always on a Friday, and then the second one on a Wednesday, because we know some folks take Fridays off. Our time today is going to talk about map architecture. So when you're cascading and developing multiple maps for your organization, some best tips on there and on cloning. So let's go ahead and get started. Let me go ahead and advance the slides here. So as I said, my name is Chris Barker. I've met many of you either virtually or in person. So thanks for joining. Also introduced, I have my partner in crime, Aaron Howard. He is behind the scenes and he is our production assistant for today. So you're going to hear his voice. Aaron, would you like to say a quick hello?
Indeed. Hello, everybody, and thank you so much for joining. And I will be behind the scenes fielding questions if I see any and supporting Chris.
Okay, great. So as I said, we have two main topics, map architecture, and we're going to talk about cloning and via when we're doing that cascading. So if you have any questions along the way, please put that into the little questions chat box there. Aaron will be monitoring those, and I'll pause halfway through and see what kind of questions we can take. If by chance that I don't get through the questions, we will keep a record of those, and we promise to publish the answers. And if any chance, since this is kind of quick and fast, if you want additional support or help, please go ahead and email me, and we can set up an individual session where I can go a little bit slower and do a deeper dive for you. All right, so let's go ahead and get started. Okay, before I dive into results, I thought it would be helpful to kind of why this matters. Your organizations understand the value of an intentional focus on strategic and operational excellence. You wouldn't have measures, you wouldn't have results if they did not believe and see the value there. But we also know that this year has been a major disruption to all of our organizations. What we also know, though, is that the way through this disruption is information. Information is power, and using that information to have strong alignment will be the pathway out of it. And when you think about so many of our organizations have a significant portion of their staff working remotely, right? How do you share and create that alignment? Well, results can help you with that. But one of the things that you need to set up is thinking about your organization and their data skills. Okay, it's one thing to share the information, but does your organization, what have you done related to data literacy? There's a lot of research that shows that in the next few years, this will be a critical and necessary success driver, really focusing on data literacy of your staff. So let's pause and really reflect on that. What are you, if you're a manager or supervisor, what are you doing to help your team? If you're a division leader, if you're running a process improvement area, right? What are the things you can do to help build data literacy? Okay, and as you think about that, you know, one of the key things is really driving metrics throughout your organization, you know, across and down, so that our metrics are not just sitting at a division level, top level organization, or just associated with our strategic plan. Okay, so when you think about then you build the metrics, right? Do your frontline teams actually have access to it, right? Are they touching it? Are they using it, right? So think about that. What sort of strategies do you want to put in place this next year? Luckily, though, results can help you here, right? Because there is no limit on how many maps and measures you can have in results. What we do want to kind of talk about, though, is before you start building and driving and really working on that, is to be intentional, right? And really think about the importance of the structure, right? If you think about this is your scorecard, what is your organization? Okay, so a couple things that results software has put in place to help keep you organized. And I'm going to just go through a few of these kind of best practices, and then I'm going to move over to the software and show you live and so you can kind of see it in play. So as you build your measures and your maps, okay, results allows you to connect parent-child maps. Okay, I'm going to show you what that looks like, and then you can do grandchildren maps. So we call that cascading and connecting. Okay, often best practices, what we've seen is that when you build your map structure, it often follows your org chart. Okay, so if that follows your org chart, the structure within your map, though, is a process orientation. Okay, while you're thinking about building that structure, your map structure in results, one of the best things I can recommend is that you think about your naming conventions to keep everyone organized, to see how they connect to kind of the layer above and the layer below them. Okay, and what I like to do is I actually like to put a piece of the parent name to anchor the child name, and I'll show you what I mean in a second on that. And then in the results list, when you click onto that all maps, remember that that list will show in alpha order. And there's some tricks that we can put into place to help force the order that makes sense for your organization. So let's go through an example. Okay, so I said often the map structure, the map architecture will follow an org chart. Okay. But within an organization, there can be ancillary kind of metric needs. So here's an example. I've created ABC organization. I have my top level director's office, CEO office, okay? This organization has a strategic plan that has metrics. They also have KPMs that the ledge requires. If you're a private organization, you might have board of directors, for instance, that have different metrics that they want to review every quarter. Then when we think about the operations, okay, my simple ABC organization has 3 divisions: operations, IT, and sales. Okay, the IT department, they branch out and they have a primarily help desk function, and they manage the security of their network. The help desk further divides, and they have an AM shift and an PM shift. Sales has an East Coast team and then a Northwest team. Okay, so when I look at this organization, I have decided, say if I'm the director here, that I want each of these teams, each of these boxes has basically a need to have metrics. Okay, so they each need to have a map. So how will I build that structure in results? Let's take a look. Okay, and I'm going to zoom over. This is just a quick little slide, but I'm going to show you this live over in results. Okay, so you can see here, this is how I have taken my org chart structure and moved it into results. So give me a second and I'm going to toggle over to results and show you now. Okay, I'm going to zoom in a little bit. Okay, so I'm in results. I'm on my landing page. So I'm going to show you the build at the end, but let's talk through some of those best practices that I walked you through. So I'm going to go to all maps. Okay, and I'm going to zoom in. Okay, so we talked about that the list is in alpha order. Okay, I intentionally want my strategic plan to be on top of the list. So I made a choice point by using numbers. Anything that has a map name with a number will go to the top of the list before we start doing alpha with the A through Z. Okay, so that's one choice point. Then my org, if you recall, I had my enterprise, and then my enterprise had 3 divisions: IT, operations, and sales. Okay, so you can see the indentation. I created those divisions. The parent map is always the enterprise. So I can see here the first indentation is my IT division, then I go operations, and then I go sales. IT is further divided into my help desk. Okay, and then also the same level is the security management. Help desk is further indentation, right? We can kind of see that org chart structure. I have my evening shift and my morning shift. Okay. The other choice point, this is the little trick on the alpha. I had those board metrics, KPM metrics for the ledge, depending if you're private or public sector. I wanted those to be on the very bottom of my list. You know, those are measures that we need to report on, but they're not as dynamic. Maybe I only report on them every 6 months, every quarter, maybe sometimes even just once a year at the annual board meeting. So I wanted those at the very bottom. So the little trick that I'd like to point out is the ZZ, and I did the legislation, I put it on the bottom. The other thing that we talked about in my best practices is incorporating part of the parent name so that it anchors and it shows the connections on that parent child. So you can see here, I was very intentional, and I called this map IT division. Okay, the next area was the help desk. And then I further incorporated the IT division, help desk, in the evening shift. Okay. The benefit here is the metrics behind the scenes in your database. Those metrics carry the tag, right? It shows where they belong, what part of the organization, and possibly, you know, if it only said, if my map name was only AM shift, right? I might now, well, where does that fit on the org chart? That might not have as much meaning there. So it helps kind of anchor that. I'm going to go back home and show you the benefit here. Okay, so now when I go to my data, okay, I am a measure owner and I own measures. I'm going to show you that I have a list, okay, and I own measures off of basically 5 different maps, okay? Because I was intentional on my naming, IT division, help desk, evening shift, when I'm looking at my measures, okay, if by chance measure names are similar, having that extra marker to anchor that measure is helpful. Okay, so I see IT division, help desk, morning shift. IT division, help desk, evening shift. It makes it easy for me as the measure owner to make sure that I'm clicking on the right thing. I understand where this belongs, this metric connects up in the organization. This is also important too, if I were to do a search, right, and I wanted to see what we are measuring for tickets, right, and I do a general search, right, if I did not have if I was not intentional again on my map name, right, it would really be a little foggy on where these metrics belong. Okay, so you can see that benefit. And then benefit even expands even more when we're talking about the dashboards and how we might want to create a visualization and filter off those map names. So really having a name that helps the user understand where this metric belongs is really critical. Okay, so let's talk about how did I build those map names and how did I create that parent-child relationship. So when we build our maps, this is an admin function, okay? So I'm logged in as an administrator, and I know that some of you on the call might only be measure owners or data steward, but kind of understanding the capabilities of results, I hope you find it helpful. So when I click on admin, okay, I do my map building under manage maps, okay? So when I go to manage maps, okay, I build my maps here under add maps. Okay, so I can take a look here. In this list here, you can see there's no indentations. It's just a list of all the map names, okay? And I see those there. Now let's say I want to operations. They have contracting, okay, and they have also in charge of managing facilities. So I can say operations, contracting, okay, and I simply have to get my go-to menu out of the way here. Excuse me while I move the menu there, okay, and I hit add, okay. So if I go down to operations contracting, I've just named that map. I want to show that operations contracting is a child map that feeds up to the division level. So I'm going to now go into edit, okay, and scroll down about to the third and you see parent map here, okay. So I click there, okay, and I simply find operations. Click there and I hit save. Now let's go back and I'm going to go back to my manage maps. Okay, I just see it in the list, right? That parent child is not reflected until I get to all maps. So I'm going to go into the view mode of what I've just built. And now I can see that relationship that the contracting team is really part of operations. Okay, so that helps me as a user or as a person in the organization to understand where does the contracting team, where do they fit within the organization. Okay, and then I can keep building if there was two different parts of contracting, maybe you know, the people drafting it, people executing it, for instance. We can keep cascading and doing that indentation there. Okay, so the other thing, just as a point out, as a little reminder, on the enterprise on top level measures, you see the little red icon. What does that mean as a reminder? That defines my home map. Okay, so when I go back to the home page and I click on my map, that's my home base. Okay, under all maps, though, I can look at any part of the organization. So if you belong to multiple areas of the organizations, you have a decision point that you can work with your administrator. What do you want to be your home map? Okay, and if it's not the one, if you move, if you switch, maybe, you know, I used to be part of IT and now I'm part of operations. I want to, you know, move my home designation. I would let my results administrator, I would just inform them, hey, I moved teams, switch me from IT to operations. They go under manage users and make that flip for you. So I'm going to pause right there and see if there are any questions. If not, we will go into the second part of our presentation in our series. Erin, anything?
We had a couple questions, but I just went ahead and answered them. Nothing at this point in time.
All right, great, thank you. So now I'm going to toggle back to the slides and we're going to go over our next topic here. Okay. And let's talk about the power of cascading. That's what we're doing when we're making these multiple maps, right? And we're pushing metrics down into the organization, right? So we're really creating that data-driven culture. What that does, it really helps break down the silos and really helps connect employees, right? So that they understand where their work fits, upstream, downstream. You know, the output of my work might be the input of somebody else's work. Okay, and when we think about that and we think of, we have the maps, but then we have the measures in them, okay, we can cascade the actual same metrics, and sometimes that's what you need. If we think about my example of the IT help desk, right, we're going to measure the same things, right? I have the morning shift and evening shift, and what's great is we can look at the volume, how it changes. Sometimes it's a related measures and we want to look at them together, right? And that's the power, right? Is that we're looking at multiple pieces together and not just, you know, oh, I just do this, right? I connect to how my work impacts others. So when we think about that and we have more measures we want to create, okay, results has the cloning functionality, right? Is that we do not want the administrative part of setting up measures to be a burden for you. We want to assist with rapid setup of measures, cloning. Okay, so some tips and tricks on there is that you can clone outcome and process measures. right? So if I think about outcome employee engagement, right, I can have that metric live in every part of my organization. Process measures, something like processing applications, right? I can have that in multiple parts of my organization. One thing I want to point out is that once you create an aggregate measure, so an aggregate measure is when you're rolling your data up to a parent. Once you've established that relationship, you cannot clone it. Okay, so what I recommend is that if you want to create an aggregate measure, okay, is that you create all your pieces and then connect it. So I create all my family members and then I join my family. So I'll talk about that a little bit more. In the cloning function, we have fields that automatically get cloned, and then we have some optional pieces of it. That includes your data. Okay, so maybe you have a measure that's, for instance, I have a measure that is on my enterprise map. I also want it on the map that is the same measure on my strategic plan or on the map for my board or my ledge, right? Maybe I just want to clone it and have it live in 2 different locations. So you can clone data. The other optional fields are measure owner, data steward, target, and thresholds. Part B of kind of cloning is that you can, when you're cloning, right, I might be creating that maybe I have evening shift, morning shift, and then I'm going to create a third one called swing shift, right? Is that I'm going to clone it and then I'm going to move it to the new map where it belongs. Okay, we're not going to talk about the move function, but when we're cloning, right, we're cloning in one location and then you can restructure. And then just ahead of time, before you get too much down the path, is to think through your naming. Just like we thought through the naming of our map, think through the naming of your measure as well as your measure code, right? Is that, do you want to, like in my example, I just put in parentheses evening shift or team A, team B. I'll show you a couple examples, as well as your measure code. If you're going to move it to a new map, what is the schema of your measure code? And in a few learning sessions, we're going to have a whole session on how to design your measure code, but I just wanted to call that out. Okay, so now I'm going to go ahead and take us back to results, and we're going to talk about cloning. There we go. All right, back in results. So creating measures happens under the admin functionality. So I'm going to go back to my admin. Okay, and I'm going to go ahead and look at go back to my help desk. Okay, and I'm going to go over to my IT help desk evening shift. I'm going to go find that map. Okay, and let's look at cloning a measure. So I go into edit mode and I want to clone a process measure. So I'm going to scoot down and go to my processes. I have a process called receiving and logging calls. I'm going to call out a couple of things. Again, just a little quick taste of thinking through your code and the measure code, thinking through naming, right? It creates organization of your database, and that's why it's important. I'm going to call out here is that a few things I did here is I did 3, okay, because this is the 3rd level of my organization. I have enterprise, I have the division, and then I have my team. So I did kind of level 3. This is my IT group, and this is my supporting process 1, receiving and logging calls. This is where I want to do a cloning of a new measure. So I'm going to go into edit, and then I'm going to go down to my process measures. I have my support team resolution time, team B. Maybe I'm adding a 3rd team, so that's what I want to clone. So I'm going to go ahead and go create my new code. I'm going to do SP1-3. And I'm going to go support, and I'm actually going to name it the same. It's the same exact metric that is for a new team. I'm going to do team C. Okay. The trick here is I go ahead and I add the measure code. I do the name. We have this little button here, clone. Okay. So I'm going to click that clone button before I hit add. I hit add. Okay. Now we have this here, and you'll see that we assume a couple things, okay, when we added this functionality. We assume that in most cases you want the same targets and thresholds. But if you don't, you can unclick. Maybe you want the same target, but different teams have different thresholds, okay, so you can unclick. The optional fields here are the measure, own, and data steward performance plans and measure values, okay? Especially if it's a new team, you're going to have a new employee over there. That would be the measure owner and the data steward. But perhaps maybe in this case, I'm just going to go ahead and it's my measure. I'm going to say I also want to be the owner there. Okay, I don't want to take my data over. And the performance plan, if this was instead of scorecard versus performance plan, I could copy that, but I'm not going to. Okay, now what I do is after I click which optional fields I want, okay, I have to go find the measure that is my cloning, you know, what am I cloning? So I go in and I expand my map list, whoops, okay. And the measure I want to find is under that, again, because I was so good on the naming of my maps, it's easy for me to find. So I open this map up, okay, and I keep clicking until I find that measure. Well, that measure I want to find is under receiving and logging calls. Okay, open that up. Okay, and I'm going to look at those process measures. Okay, and here's there. I want this measure. I'm cloning the same thing that's Team B, and I'm creating it for Team C. I hit clone, and the magic happens. I get a message, successfully cloned. Okay, let's go ahead and take a look down here. I see it, support team resolution, Team C, Team B, and Team C. I go into edit. Okay, and then if I needed to make any adjustments, you can see here, I cloned the calculation, took over the frequency. I had checked measure owner, it's active, good high. Okay, so all these, and in this particular case, this measure that I cloned was had a numerator and denominator. It was a fractional measure, so it cloned that, and my target and my thresholds came over. So that rapid setup is super fast and easy, and you can get measures set up literally in 30 seconds. And then just a sneak peek, if I want to go back, okay, and take a look. Now, if Team C had their own map, this is where I would do that move function. So after I cloned it, I would move it to the new location. Okay, so we have just a few minutes left. Aaron, any questions?
No, none at this time.
Okay, I'm going to go back over to my slide deck. Okay, and just a couple tips here. Okay, a couple of the related concepts that I talked about. Also kind of looking at additional training support, okay? When you go into results, the little icon in the bottom, okay, we call Milo. You can search, and you can just search on the keyword videos and some related videos that might also kind of add some more depth to your knowledge. We recommend watching Understanding My Map. We have one on cloning, moving, and created aggregate measures. Okay, so that wraps our training session today. A reminder again, please send in your questions. We will send out this recording of this training learning session to all of you on Tuesday. And with that, we'll just ask you a few questions about the, you know, what next can we cover that would help make your understanding of results better. So great, thank you for your time. Have a fabulous weekend, and thanks for joining us. Take care. Bye-bye.